Hello, everyone. This is Live Life Well TV host Robert Landau. We're back with another episode of America's Greatest Personalities. This episode, we will take a look at the life and times of the iconic one and only Miss Bette Davis. Stay tuned. All right. So, what can you possibly say about someone who has said any and all of the following? I was never beautiful like Miss Hayworth or Miss Lamar. I was known as the little brown wren. Who would want to get me at the end of a picture? Or, I often think that a slightly exposed shoulder emerging from a long satin nightgown packs more sex than two naked bodies in bed. Or, an affair now and then is good for a marriage. It adds spice, stops it from getting boring. I ought to know. Or, I have been uncompromising, peppery, intractable, monomaniacal, tactless, volatile, and oft-times disagreeable. I suppose I'm larger than life. Or, I've always liked men better than women. Or, what a dump. And finally, or, I'd love to kiss ya, but I just washed my hair. What can you possibly say about someone that has said any and all of those things? Well, a lot. Ruth Elizabeth Davis was born on April 5th, 1908 in Lowell, Massachusetts. Shortly before Davis reached the age of 10, her parents unfortunately divorced, and her mother ended up raising the family. On extremely limited funds, Davis's mother sent her and her sister to boarding school. When she graduated, Davis enrolled in something called the John Murray Anderson Dramatic School. No one knew then, but only 2 out of her class at the dramatic school that year would ever end up making something like a name of themselves in the acting industry. Of course, Bette Davis was one of them, and somebody who just happened to have been named Lucille Ball was the other. In 1929, Davis made her Broadway debut in a play called Broken Dishes. After taking the stage in yet another Broadway show, Bette up and moved to Hollywood, where she was to screen test for one and only Universal Studios. Her screen test got her in the door, and she ended up making a grand total of 6 small films with Universal, but that was it. Davis's contract, unfortunately, to her dismay, would not be renewed at Universal. She was just about to throw it all away and return to the Broadway stage when, at the very last minute, just in a nick of time, she happened to receive a phone call from Warner Brothers, and this was in 1932. Bette happily signed a 7-year contract and made a film called The Man Who Played God, which ended up being the film that would set Bette Davis on the path to iconic stardom. People started to sit up and take notice of the 5-foot, 3.5-inch powerhouse with a capital P. Warner's ended up lending her out in 1934 to RKO for the role of Mildred in Of Human Bondage. And in 1935, Bette received a coveted Academy Award nomination for her work in a film called Dangerous. She wasn't only nominated for her work in Dangerous, but guess what? She ended up taking home the statuette for her amazing, brilliant work in that film as well. Nothing like an Academy Award to get your career running in fast track. That is just what happened. However, Betty started to get very disgruntled, dismayed, and disappointed to find that Warner Brothers wasn't offering her the roles that she felt a very talented actress of her stature deserved. In 1936, she decided, you know what, the heck with Warner Brothers. I'm going to go to England to make some pictures because they're going to appreciate me. She was once quoted as saying the following: the male ego, with very few exceptions, is elephantine to start with. Mr. Jack Warner himself would end up suing Betty for going to England, and she was forced to come back and honor the rest of her contract with the film studio. But her ploy, much to her chagrin, actually worked very well because now she was offered a better contract and much better roles to go along with that much better contract. 1939 was the year that Davis would win her second Oscar, this time for an amazing film that you might have seen called Jezebel. She was to continue to receive Oscar nominations for the next 5 years in a row. Oscar nominations, but unfortunately, no Oscars. More films would follow, and by 1942, Bette Davis would become the highest paid woman in America. Not the highest paid actress in America. I mean, yes, that was true, but the highest paid woman in America. She also won fame for the fact that she contributed to the World War II effort in a rather major fashion. She created something called the Hollywood Canteen, which was inspired by the world famous New York stage door canteen. Davis single-handedly, with her passion in tow, transformed an abandoned Los Angeles nightclub and turned it into a major entertainment venue. Of this, Davis would once say the following words: "There are few accomplishments in my life that I'm actually proud of. The Hollywood Canteen is one of them." For the wonderful, heartfelt work Betty did in this regard, she was awarded the Distinguished Civilian Service Medal, which was the Defense Department's highest civilian honor and award. Davis would make a triumphant comeback in a now legendary movie made in 1950. If you ask me, it's my personal favorite of all the amazing Bette Davis films. It was All About Eve. For the role of Margot Chen, she received her 8th Academy Award nomination. Ms. Davis said the following: "Why am I so good at playing bitches? I think it's because I'm not a bitch. Maybe that's why Miss Crawford always plays ladies." Yikes. With that said and done, Davis made yet another amazing comeback in 1962 in a film she made with Joan Crawford called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Ever seen it? It's amazing. On the sensitive topic of Ms. Crawford, Bette Davis once said, "The best time I ever had with Joan Crawford was when I pushed her down the stairs in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She has slept with every male star at MGM except Lacey." The backstage antics between these two legends is the stuff of legends. There was a miniseries on cable TV not too long ago by the name of Feud. It had something like 8 parts to it, maybe. Brilliant miniseries about the feud between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Susan Sarandon played Bette Davis beautifully, as did Jessica Lange play Joan Crawford. It was an amazing miniseries. And if there's any way you can get a hold of that to watch it, I highly, highly encourage you to do that. But about the real life feud between the two of them, just listen to this. During the making of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Davis had Coca-Cola vending machines installed on the set. Well, that all sounds well and good when the fact that Joan Crawford just happened to be the widow of Pepsi Cola's CEO. Yikes. Crawford, though, got her revenge by putting weights in her pockets when Davis had to drag Crawford across the floor in some of the scenes of the film. Of Joan Crawford, Bette Davis has said the following: I have great admiration for Joan Crawford as an actress, but she's a slut. Her whole life is an act. She is what she is, a cheap flapper who liked to get laid. Davis has also said this: there may be a heaven, but if Joan Crawford is there, I'm not going. She has also said this. Let's do this. Let's reverse the tide a little bit, because we got to give equal billing here, don't you think? On the subject of Bette Davis, Joan Crawford has been quoted as saying, so I had no great beginnings in legitimate theater, but what the hell? What the hell had she become if not a movie star, with all her little gestures, with the cigarette, the clipped speech, the big eyes, the deadpan? I was just as much an actress as Bette Davis was, even though I wasn't trained for the stage. Miss Crawford has also been quoted as saying, I am aware of how Miss Davis felt about my makeup in Baby Jane, but my reasons for appearing somewhat glamorous were just as valid as hers, with all those layers of rice powder that she wore and that ghastly lipstick. But Miss Davis was always partial to covering up her face in motion pictures. She calls it art. Others might call it camouflage, a cover-up for the absence of any real beauty. And finally, when asked about the differences in behavior while on the set of Baby Jane between herself and Bette Davis, Joan Crawford stated, Betty liked to rant and rave. I just sat and knit. She yelled, and I knitted a scarf from Hollywood to Malibu. Enough said about that, don't you think? The 1970s and 1980s saw a combination of film and mostly TV roles for the great Bette Davis. At the age of 75, she had to stop acting, but just for a bit, as she had a mastectomy due to breast cancer. But right after that, as you probably guess, she kept right on working and once said during this period of time, I will not retire while I've still got my legs and my makeup box. Her career was her life, and she lived each and every day to the fullest. She once said, and she's famous for saying this, old age is no place for sissies. 9 days later, after saying that, the great Bette Davis would suffer a stroke. However, the unsinkable Molly Brown would never stop working. And she couldn't, actually, for many reasons. One major one was the fact that acting was the only thing that she felt she knew how to do very well. Not only was acting her career, it was her life. The great Bette Davis will make her last and final movie. Maybe you've seen it back in 1988 and passed on October 6th, 1989. On Davis's tombstone is written the following: "She did it the hard way." And you know what? I don't think she would have had it any other way. But that's only the half. Here are some amazing stats concerning this larger than life personality. Bette Davis once said, "Attempt the impossible in order to improve your work." And to that end, she has made more than 100 films. She has 100 films to her credit. That's amazing. She was considered for the role of Scarlett O'Hara in the film Gone with the Wind, but Warner Brothers nixed it. It was none other than Walt Disney himself that wanted Davis to play, get this, the role of Mary Poppins in the film that ultimately gave Julie Andrews the role of Mary Poppins. And you know what? This is just a personal opinion. I'm not sure I could imagine the great Bette Davis as Mary Poppins. I think it would have been an entirely different type of character that she would have presented. But you know what? I would have loved to have seen her take on the role of Mary Poppins. Also, you might not have known that the great Bette Davis was considered for the Elizabeth Taylor role in the movie Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Now, that I could see Bette Davis play beautifully. Bette was also the first woman to be president of the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences. She was the first woman to be honored with the American Film Institute's Lifetime Achievement Award. And there were so many other awards to follow, too numerous to mention, really. On the topic of marriage, Ms. Davis once said, "I'd marry again if I could find a man who had $15 million, would sign half of it over to me, and guarantee that he'd be dead within a year." Davis ended up having 4 unhappy marriages and preferred to live out her life alone. Her first husband, Arthur Farnsworth, unfortunately was killed in an accidental fall in which he took a blow to the head. She has said, "We movie stars all end up by ourselves. Who knows? Maybe we want to." But she wasn't totally alone. Davis had a daughter with her third husband and also ended up adopting 2 children while she was married to her 4th husband. Her real, true love was allegedly said to be director William Wyler, but he was married and refused to leave his wife. Here's some more interesting facts before we close. Bette Davis was 5'3.5" tall, as you might have remembered me saying at the beginning of this presentation. In the 1950s, Davis suffered osteomyelitis of the jaw and had to have part of her jaw removed. She had a reputation of being extremely difficult, and to that, she once said this: "I've been known as difficult for 50 years, and it's always to make it the best film I can make it. Actually, the male star in this town is infinitely more difficult than any women are. They're vainer than any woman star. Really and truly, there are many more problems between male stars than between female stars. I think it's always been true," she once said. What follows are some of the things that I truly admire about Bette Davis, and I'd like to share some of these with you before we do close, if I may. In many ways, I believe Bette Davis never made a bad picture. Here are some of her best roles. Well, we won't even need to go in them because those films are now classics. Do see as many as you can. But even the films which weren't critical or box office successes still hold their appeal. Why? Because I, for one, believe it is because she was such a darn good actress. You believed that she believed who she thought she was playing in each and every film was real. She also pronounced words unlike any other actress of her time. When you'd hear Bette Davis speak, you would know it was Bette Davis speaking. You could truly understand every word she said, and she had incredible diction to that end. Maybe her years as a stage actress really helped her in that way. I believe that when you can enunciate clearly, you can take your audience with you. I also believe that Bette Davis was and still is a role model to women and many men, actually. Why would I say this? Because Bette Davis was not born with the proverbial spoon in her mouth. Nothing was ever given to her. For one thing, she didn't have the stunning good looks that would have automatically propelled her to the top in those days. To this, she once said, "Hollywood always wanted me to be pretty, but I fought for realism." She had to work and fight for every single thing she achieved in life. And maybe that's why she was known and really was such a tough cookie. But you know what? There's a good aspect of being a tough cookie. Here's an example. When Bette got to New York City, her mother wanted her to get a coveted spot in the acting class of not only a very famous acting teacher, but also a famous actress as well. Maybe you've heard of the name Eva Le Gallienne. Ms. Le Gallienne had an acting studio, and you had to audition with her to even be considered as one of her students. Bette was terrified to audition for a famous, established actress such as Eva Le Gallienne. And besides, La Gallienne had a well-deserved reputation for being quite a tough cookie when it came to her students. Remember, this was just when Bette was starting out. But Bette auditioned, and how do you think the audition turned out? Bette's audition happened to have been an alleged dismal failure. La Gallienne asked Bette to recite a speech from memory while using a Dutch accent. It, as you can probably well understand, was absolutely humiliating to Bette. To make matters worse, La Gallienne told Bette that she shouldn't even think of becoming an actress, that she hadn't the slightest bit of talent, and that she might be better doing babies and raising a family in suburbia instead. Ouch. Put yourself in Bette's shoes for just a minute. If this had happened to you, how would you have felt? From this incident, and probably many others is my guess, Bette decided that not only was she going to be an actress, but a darn good one. Thank you very much. If you are given a lemon, you can either run home and cry or squeeze the heck out of it and make the damn best lemonade you ever tasted. Obviously, Bette chose the latter. Here was a lady who wanted to make sure that the work she would leave behind for you and I to appreciate was work of the absolute highest caliber. Bette Davis may not have been the easiest one to get along with during the course of her career, or had the easiest time of things during the course of her amazing career. But it's very clear that she ended up paving the way for those who would come after her, as the studios would end up treating their talent much better and finally would understand that if you create a healthy atmosphere during a film shoot, you get it back at the box office tenfold. Bingo. There are so many people who would consider themselves up and coming that look at Bette's many achievements and say, you know what? If she could do it and do it so very well, so can I. That's an incredible, wonderful lesson to learn and a gift to so many people. We have Bette Davis to thank for that and so much more. Never be afraid to be who you are and fight what you believe in if it comes from your heart. That was the life and times of the great Bette Davis. I certainly hope you had a good time here during this episode. I did, and we'll look forward to seeing you on future episodes of America's Greatest Personalities. This has been Robert Landau, and I thank you for joining me.